Welcome to this episode of The World According to Craig, which is really the world according to other people, just facilitated by me. Today's guest, Emily Collins. Instagram fitness influencer, entrepreneur extraordinaire, just an all-around badass woman. Emily, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I'm very excited.
Thanks for
You know I'm a
having
big
me.
fan of yours.
Oh my God. Stop.
So, just to let everyone know, today, obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about, I think, some of the most incredible lessons that people can learn from you and about life. And we talk a lot on this show about how life can seem chaotic, and it doesn't have to. Like, life can seem like a mess. It's just you don't have the tools. We were never given the tools to understand it.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, you live in this interesting tension and dichotomy of world. You represent, like, on a 10 scale what everyone lives on a 2 scale. There's so many things at tension that I'm so excited to get into. But first, I would love to help people get to know you. So you, and I mean, the tension starts back in the crib, right? Like you are from Massachusetts.
Yes.
And you're biracial with a black dad and a white mom.
Correct.
And what was that like growing up in Massachusetts and then Western Massachusetts, which might as well be Sacramento.
Might as well be different countries.
Yes.
Yes. So I grew up in Plainville, Massachusetts. No joke, that is what it's called. And Plainville is kind of, obviously Massachusetts is a blue state and it's a liberal state, but Plainville is your typical suburb, and it's a little bit like closet Trumpy, but outwardly
he's trying to save the suburbs. He keeps telling us.
Yes.
I
Oh,
don't
yes.
think
The
anyone
housewives.
no one in Massachusetts is buying that right now.
No. But yeah, so I grew up in Plainville, and when you ask what it was like, I mean, to me, it was normal. I didn't know anything else. So,
No one ever highlighted to you that you were like biracial and that was different?
oh, of course. Yes, I definitely, not necessarily that I was biracial because, and this is one of the complications of my life that we'll get into, but depending on the environment that I was in, I had a different identity, right? So in Plainville, I was black. And like I was the black girl in school, and there weren't many of us. I could name everyone, probably still. And I went to high school with those.
I mean, I went to school in rural Indiana, and I didn't meet a black person until my senior year in high school. 2 missionaries adopted 8 Haitian children, and that was my first introduction to meeting like a black person, which is stunning to think about. But then again, I was in Mike Pence's congressional district, so maybe not stunning about that.
And it's probably still just the same.
Just the same, 100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't, to other people, I don't think I came off as biracial in Plainville. I was black. And, all my friends were white, and I definitely had some pretty intense situations of racism, but nothing that was like an everyday thing at the time that I could recognize,
like isolated incidents?
Incidents, yeah. Like kids on the playground, like dropping the N-word because they just heard it and they think it's cool and I'm the only black person they've ever seen. Or I remember one time I was just on the swing set with my best friend at the time. Her name was Catherine. And a kid came up to us and didn't even acknowledge me, but asked her why she was hanging out with me because we don't mix and we shouldn't be on the swing set together or be friends or
Okay.
So things like that are
how does
are glaring. And
how does an 8-year-old deal with that? Like, I'm like, at that point you're like,
yeah, I'm like, okay. But I mean, my dad, and I always remember this story that my dad told us, that because we moved to Massachusetts, to Plainville, my dad worked at Boston University. And so he wanted to raise us in the suburbs. And he told us that he would go to different towns and he would sit outside the school at times that school was dismissed, and he would count the number of children of color that would come out of the school. With that logic, I'm not sure why we ended up in Plainville, but he did. He did do some.
He went with
background work.
he went with the one with the least amount of black kids coming out of school.
Best we can do in Massachusetts suburbs, I guess. I mean, in Boston area, it's outside of the city. There's not much diversity at all,
right?
And we weren't going to be in the city. But so outside of those minor glaring traumatic events,
outside of the years of therapy to deal with these events, I'm a huge fan of.
Outside of that, it was just all I knew. All of my friends were white, and we would go visit my dad's family on a lot of holidays, and that was, my Black experience was holidays and seeing my family, but day to day, I was the Black girl in the white town.
And so when you went to visit your dad's Black family, where was that reception welcoming? Was it because there can be within the Black community questions of like Blackness and are you Black enough and things like that.
I have witnessed that for sure. Not in my family though. Not at all. No, my dad's family is the best. Okay. Yeah. We can put them in the good category.
Because there's a whole show on ABC, which I was baffled about, which when it first came out and is incredibly popular from Anthony Anderson, which is Blackish, which is the concept that like you're living a white life, so you're Blackish, if I'm getting that right.
Yeah.
And I was deeply disturbed, but apparently the rest of America was not because it's doing well in the ratings. But like that whole concept was like at tension from that.
I need to watch that other one, Mixed-ish. I never watched that. I need to watch it.
I'm like,
I feel like that would be
ish. It was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm staying out of all of this. I'm just going to watch Madam Secretary.
Easier. I mean, growing up all the time, I would hear, you're the whitest Black girl we know, and all the stuff that at the time both was intended as and felt like a compliment because like I was always trying to blend in, in whatever environment I was in. And to me, I was just acting how I was taught to act because that's all I was, submerged in culturally.
Okay. So when you talk about blending in, like, how do you go from blending in to being the woman you are today, right? Where you are, it
took a long time.
You are anything but a blender-inder.
Yeah.
That's not a word.
Blender-inder.
Like I look up in the dictionary over here, like how that is, but you have these like dual dichotomy, like you're a multi-hyphenate in the way that like few people manage to be, right? Like, so there's being this Instagram fitness influencer, builder of brands, corporate woman, you're running D&I initiatives. Talk more about like what you're doing today in that vein. How do you own who you are? Yeah.
So I didn't find my voice until I started teaching fitness. So right after college, I started working in the corporate world. I still work for the same company that I worked for out of college, which I love. Also not a very diverse environment, but did not feel any different to me. And I kind of just was floating through. In high school, I was not vocal about these kinds of things. In college, I was not vocal about this kind of thing. In college, I did start a blog where I would like get a little edgy here and there. But
like Justin Timberlake lyric edgy?
No. Like we're going to talk about like why the Boston Marathon bomber deserves the death penalty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I started getting a
Tsarnaev,
little,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was a terrorist.
Yeah.
So like,
well,
yes.
There's that. So I started getting a little bit more confident in my voice in writing. But in terms of actually vocalizing things, it wasn't until I taught fitness and kind of found that confidence with literally a microphone attached to my mouth. They're like, okay, I have to say something that matters to these people and they're paying a lot of money. So like, how am I going to give them something that's not just a sweat?
Okay.
So that was, I started teaching fitness about 5 years ago. And with Instagram and having a platform like that, I feel really responsible to speak up about things. And I do think that my identity provides a different experience than people get from most people that they're following or listening to.
Do you speak up at work too? Is it like two halves of the same coin? It's a different environment.
It is. Yeah, it's a different environment. Definitely more so now that we started all of our diversity and inclusion initiatives. For reference, it's a staffing company. It's nothing that's changing the world in the sense of the way that we're talking now. But over the summer, we started a diversity and inclusion council surrounding the murder of George Floyd. And it was long overdue. And luckily our executive leaders, who are amazing humans, recognized that it was long overdue. And they were like, go, tell us what you need. So I sit on that council now. And a coworker of mine was the one to kind of stand up and start that, which was amazing. So I definitely have found my voice there, speaking up and tying in like, hey, I've been part of this community for 6 years now, and here's how I really feel about, our demographic and where we can go with it. So heading in the right direction.
That's amazing. But what's interesting to me about this is like in the process of finding your identity, that identity from the beginning was split, right? Like black dad, white mom, like Republican Massachusetts and Democrat Massachusetts. You go into this world and there's a continuation of that, right? Which is in Instagram, you're part of like, I know you as this authentic human being who's genuinely is the person that you see online or offline, right? And on Instagram isn't known for that, right? Like,
Totally.
but so you're like part of this community, but you're the authentic part of this community. So how does that dichotomy exist? How do you balance that? And at the same time, you're in a corporate world where you're like, okay, let me be this, but how do I be myself? And then also let me now be part of this diversity and inclusion council, which is a whole separate layer of like how far, where you go. Like there's an inherent tension in all of this of like being different and yet a part of.
Yeah. It's a lot of different, and just to, pull the exact word that you just used, filters, right? Like I am authentically myself in all of these different environments, just with like a little touch of difference based on the audience.
I think this is, there's so many topics we could talk about, and I don't want to be redux on, there's so many people who do a much better job than I would about talking about social justice. What's really interesting to me is this concept of filter and this concept of things at tension, right? Like there's, I think, a misperception among audiences that if you put a filter on something that you're misrepresenting yourself in some way, as opposed to I'm choosing to represent this part of myself. Like I'm a fan of saying that like Gen Z, who I have a lot of problems with, like they like to bring their whole selves to everything.
Yes.
And
my younger sisters are Gen Z. I'm always like, girls.
You're like, and then the thing is, like, I want you to be your whole self. I want you to acknowledge your whole self and understand your whole self, which is going to require a whole lot of therapy for that generation that they have not yet engaged in. But they also, being your whole self is different than bringing your whole self.
100%. It's not that I'm being someone else in those different environments. It's just picking and choosing where to be which version.
So what do you say to people who are like, you shouldn't have to do that, right? Like, I mean, I would think that my counter is like anyone of any race or background or ethnicity, irrelevant to the background. We all put on filters where we go. Like, I have a friend who wears shorts and a t-shirt every day at home, but wears a suit and tie at work every day. Like that's a filter, right? But what do you say to people who are like, you shouldn't have to compromise in that way? Do you feel like it's a compromise?
I don't feel like it's a compromise per se. I guess what I would say to those people is, you try that in a situation where it's not shorts versus a suit. It's not quite that simple. It's difficult, and I navigate it every day and just the best that I can. But I guess just like you said, going back to Plainville, it's like, it's all that I know. So it's not something that where I'm walking into work one day and I'm like, okay, here's how you act. It's just like, that's who I am there. This is who I am on Instagram. This is who I am at home. Which at home, a lot of times I'm just a lot quieter and like digesting everything from the day.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about this. Like, if we're gonna say the tension like continues in the whole life, it's like people like have a cycle and a circle. Like yours continues at home too, because you have the balance of you are a Black woman married to a law enforcement officer as well, who is not Black.
Correct.
And so I feel like there's, without getting into the details of that, the emotional journey of what you know about his world and what the world at large is telling you should or should not feel. Yeah. Like there's, I mean, we talk about tension of like Republican Massachusetts and Democrat Massachusetts is one thing. This tension, and it's not bad tension. I think people think tension is bad, but it's like two things in a mixture, like balanced together, like a yin and a yang. Like it could be beautiful or it could be disastrous. But like, how does that feel? Like, how do you go through those feelings? Like,
it's complicated, and I definitely wouldn't call it tension in a negative sense. But I think, like you said, it can go both ways.
Tension can be positive. There's sexual tension. There's tension on the line that keeps it tight. Like, it doesn't have to be negative.
It's very educational, and I see that as a positive when I look at all these situations. Is like, I have 3. Say, God forbid, tomorrow we wake up to the news that a Black man was killed by a police officer. I go through 3 different trains of thought before I come to any sort of conclusion. Okay. So there's the first, And I don't know why they're in this order, but they're always in the same order. The first is, usually the police officer is white. I hate to say that, but what was going through his or her head, and why did they think they had to go to those lengths? The second is coming from what I have learned and what I know and I've educated myself on about law enforcement training. And okay, technically, based on this video, which is all I have to base it off of, they acted within their training, and whether or not their training is the way it should be today is a whole different conversation. But given the tools that they've been given, well, like, were they technically in the right? Which is a very difficult one. And then the third one, and I don't know why this is the third one, but sucks that it's last, but this is something I'm working through, is what if it was my dad? And like that whole side of things. So I have to go through all of that, sit with all of that, and then kind of come to a conclusion. And then the tough part is I can physically feel, and part of this is a little narcissistic, but I feel like I can feel my Instagram followers being like, what does Emily think about this? And why hasn't she said anything about this? And like, how should I feel based on how she feels? And
ooh, that's a lot of unnecessary pressure.
Yeah, no,
like,
totally.
I feel like they should be on their own journey.
Yeah, yes, but and a lot of that I'm putting on myself, of course. But yeah, it's complicated. But I do see that extra layer of education and kind of knowing the background of how things work as a blessing. And even though most people don't want another lens to have to look through, I think that it helps me.
I think, listen, I talk a lot, and I have this rant, which I do, about the fact that we are in a republic, not a democracy. And in a republic, we have a duty, an obligation to be informed. And I think there are a lot of people that don't have to live as complex an existence, right? Like, they just get to feel.
Yeah.
And whether it's in response to the tragic killing of a black man by a white police officer, or whether it's in response to their boss yelling at them at work, they just get to feel, right? I don't know what that's like.
Or be told how to feel,
Yeah, like, and you go through this process, you go through this complexity, there's a nuance, it's difficult, right? It's like, to anyone who has just a simplistic notion of like, I get to feel, I almost want to be like, can you just find one thing in your life where you don't feel, and see what that looks like? I want to see them put in the effort, because I feel like you not only put in the effort, you have to put in the effort. The effort makes you a stronger person.
Yeah.
You have to have all of that complexity.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is people talk about how rich life is, like how complex individuals are, and then they get really reductionist when it comes to an opinion.
Yeah.
Like, so when you're living in this complexity, and then you're confronting the world out there, and the world is not being complex, and they're being reductionist, what does it feel like? Like, how do you handle that? Like, what does it feel like inside?
It's tough inside. Outside, I
like,
usually, I'm like,
I'm
slowly dying inside. No, it's usually a cycle of, I come out of the gate really hot, and I'm like, I'm ready to talk to anyone and everyone who wants to hear my opinion, and I will have conversation back and forth, which I have slowly grown fatigued of. And then I usually get to a point where I'm like, I'm just not gonna post anything about this, because I feel like it's a lose-lose, and I don't know how to put into words what I'm saying, and what I'm feeling. So it's definitely a cycle. And, I do try to have as many, respectful, informed conversations as I can, because I do feel that this kind of triple life that's all in my body is rare, and it's valuable for people to hear all these different opinions. But I also am coming more to terms with the fact that, like, it's not my job to help people understand. Well, do your own research.
And people don't. It's weird. Yeah, like, that's the part of this, is like, I don't want to absolve people of, like, there have to be people out in the world who are helping to put messages, like the right messages out in the world, not the Alex Jones messages of the world, right? Like, but at the same time, that's a lot of personal emotional pressure. Like, one of the things that I find most amazing about you, that I think people can learn from, is also when you have this positive tension and sometimes emotionally exhausting tension, is that you're able to step back from it, right? Like, you can live a life and live a positive, happy, productive life in the midst of all this. I think sometimes people feel that if everything's not quite right, that they can be like, that they're just upset over it, right? Like, they focus on the negative, or like, this isn't the way this should be going, and all these other things. And I'm just like, I want to, like, just shake them and be like, the world can still be an okay
Yeah.
place, right?
Yeah.
Like you can still live a happy life.
Yeah.
How do you get there, right? Like
It's
practical advice
yeah.
for beginners. Right? Like,
Yeah. It's tough. And this advice that I got from a mentor of mine back in Boston in the fitness industry was one time she was talking to me about, it was her own situation and she had a family loss and how she went through this phase of why this, why me? And she came to this point of it just is, where the 3 words that she just tells herself, it just is. And sometimes you don't need a reason for everything. And my husband has been really great with, sometimes I just shut down and in a bad mood when all these things are just overwhelming. And he's like, it's just the world today. And I'm like, just the world. It just is. And I mean, it's definitely tough. And I guess it's a little bit different for everyone, right? So writing helps me a lot. Music helps me a lot. Just phone calls with friends help me a lot. But sometimes you just got to sit with it, which isn't the best advice.
Well, but I love that advice.
Yeah.
That last piece, like, yes, everyone needs to find an outlet for the passion, right? Like if I didn't work out every day, I'd be like nuts.
That
but
too.
this just sitting with it is actually the part that I'd love to take a minute on, because I feel like everyone is in a rush to come to a conclusion, not just about social justice, but in about everything in their lives. I need to have this job. I need to have this house. I need to have this car. I need to, like, conclusions right away. Like, where's my life? Like I see 22-year-olds who are like, where's the love of my life so I can get married? I was like, it is not 1956.
They're like my clock.
I was like, you're gay. You don't have a biological clock. Kidding. That's not meant to be a derogatory term, but it's speaking from the heart, because I'm closing 40 and don't have
your
kids
podcast.
yet. Well, yeah, it's my podcast. And I'm also like, I feel that clock. I'm like, where's my kids? Like I'm almost 40.
Are they?
But, you know, living in that, right? We're not in 1956 anymore. There is a complexity to life. Just living and accepting the mess seems like the first big step in the battle.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Like,
not feeling the need to be the first. I think that's part of the curse of social media is people feel the need to be the first to share. We need to arrest this person. This person just died and this is what's happening. And that instant need to vocalize. And sometimes it's like, take a step back. Are you looking at the full picture? Are you reading multiple news sources and not just certain ones that support your agenda?
Oh my God, reading Breitbart every day is traumatizing, but I do it just for informative purposes.
Yeah, it's hard.
Sorry.
It sucks.
But but you see the mess, right? Like it's like, I see these articles, I'm like, okay, there's a mess and we're in the middle of it, right? Like, and I live in the middle of a mess, right? Like I am closing in on 40. I don't have kids. Although I have a boyfriend, so, you know, there's hope. But like I am like halfway through my career. Who knows what the second half looks like? A very non-traditional career. Like I feel like everyone can find a little bit of mess in their own life.
Yeah.
Is a little bit like what does that feel like? When did you ever have a moment where you're like, okay, I can come to terms with like living in this and not being the first out, right? Like not and just taking a beat.
Yeah. I had a situation over the summer where I had posted about, I actually put this post on Instagram and my clickbait caption, the first line said, "My name is Emily Collins and I'm racist." And I went into different, you know, racial biases that I have. And the point was to lead by example of people being like, I don't understand racism. I'm not racist. Everyone is. I mean, it's in our...
by the way, Avenue Q did a song about it, right?
Yeah,
like the Broadway show is everybody is a little bit racist.
Yeah,
it's
it's just,
concept.
yeah. And the sooner we can all realize that and stop pretending, you know, oh my God, if I could count the number of people in my DMs that were like, I don't see any difference between you and me. And it's like, not what I want to hear either. Like, good try. Anything else you've got in your pocket? Or I had black friends growing up. I get it. I totally get it. Cool. But
like, that wasn't the point.
Yeah. But on that post, I had used the hashtag Black Lives Matter and,
risky move.
yeah. And there's risky move in the way that you're thinking where I'm going with this, but I actually had a girl comment on my post, a black woman saying, "You're not black, you're mixed. Stop claiming this. Stop using this hashtag. Stop using us for likes, blah, blah, blah." Us, she was saying. And that kind of set me back into like okay, wait. Because in Plainville, I was the black girl. My whole life since then, where I've kind of found my identity, I'm the mixed girl where I can see both. And now it's, you're not black. And I did go back and forth with her. My go-to is like to be super, super nice to people, kill them with kindness. And I was like, this is how genetics work. My dad is black and therefore I am black. And she was like, but your mom is white and therefore you're mixed. And that just kind of gave me this sit back moment of like, man, this is sometimes a losing battle. And,
right.
And I have to pick and choose what those battles are and what I choose to engage in. And that definitely gave me a moment of pause of, okay, wait, see how you really feel about something before you decide if you want to dip your toe in that social media water, which is poisonous.
Oh, so poisonous. And we haven't gotten to the Russian bots and the polls. I have
Oh
a
my
whole
God,
separate rant
the
on
bots.
that. Like the bots are insane. You're like somebody with 3 posts who follows 7,000 people. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is that ability to take a beat. I feel like there's an exhausting piece of this, which is like, okay, let me confront everything. Let me do everything. Let me be a spokesperson for everything. And then there's the other part, which is let me try to say something that can contribute something to this conversation over here. And I think that's what my attempt at this podcast is. We'll see if I fail, right? But one of your contributions is just people seeing that the messiness is okay. It's okay to take a beat. It's okay to live in a world where you have conflicting priorities, where you have conflicting feelings. Like you can have mixed emotions. You can be mixed race. It's just the mess is okay.
Yeah.
And you can make your way through life being the best version of yourself. And I don't mean that in like a hashtag motivational Monday way, but like sometimes the best version of yourself is like, I need to eat pizza and ice cream today.
Yep. 100%. And like all of that, and you can have your own opinion. You don't have to, some people do have one or a couple pretty cut and dry identities that, they're expected to believe a certain way because of their identity. It's like,
there's a militancy on both sides on the extremes, and I'm never a fan of an extreme on anything. There's a militancy on that vein. I don't mean military, but like just be lockstep as you found
just like
out.
a will not listen to anything else.
Right. Well, in that sense, I am just so grateful to like have the opportunity to get to listen and poke and prod and ask what are probably exhausting questions to you that you've answered a million times.
Is great. These are different questions.
My goal is to be different because basically I am really different.
You're super different.
And so I think, from that vein, I'm super grateful that you took the time today to sit down with us and really just share if nothing else, if people take away nothing else, the reaffirming sensibility that somebody can be a lot of things at once, and a lot of those things can be at competition with each other. And the emotional journey can also leave you like a much stronger person, somebody that I bow down to and adore. And I'm excited for our next game night because we're going to play Clue and I'm going to topple you. I'm going to do this. And so I know we have mutual friends and we're going to get down with that Clue board, but thank you.
Get down with that Clue board.
I don't know. I might listen. I'm not the coolest person in the world. It happens. It happens. I'm new at this. It's fine. It's fine. I tell myself it's fine. But I want to say thank you for sharing the positive tension of your world, for sharing your journey, for giving people just a role model of what it's like to exist in that dichotomy. And I would say dichotomy, except it's more like a trichotomy or quadrichotomy or
multichotomy.
Multichotomy. Yes. It's been inspirational and amazing. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
I'm humbled.
And if you like this, tune in next week and we'll have another guest who shares things that are far more interesting than my own story and far more informative on the world according to Craig. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for tuning in to The World According to Craig. This is my attempt at a podcast because apparently this is the new daytime talk show, so I'm just gonna keep trying. Oh, and if you didn't like it, my apologies. You can stop tuning in because it's The World According to Craig, and I'll tune into The World According to you sometime soon.